Oh, goodness. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Convos with Candidates. I am your host, Stephanie Smith, and I'm here with Phil Glynn. And we are excited about our conversation this evening. So, first things first, let's talk about Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. And Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet is an organization dedicated to amplifying the voices and power of Black women through education and advocacy so that we can be effective advocates for the issues that matter most to us. And so, first of all, we'll start with some questions from me and I'll give you a chance to open up. And then, please, you guys, begin to type in your questions, push the like button, and let's make this really interactive. We'll have some opportunities to actually read your questions and give Phil here a chance to answer it and tell his story. What I love about this is a really unique opportunity because it's just one-on-one and it gives you the time to really just relax, relate, release. There you go. Get real comfortable and give our friends a chance to tune in. But let's go ahead and begin. And why don't you start, Phil, by just introducing yourself and telling us why you're running for mayor and what you can expect to accomplish on behalf of Black women voters.
Sure. Well, thanks very much for the opportunity. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. My name is Phil Glynn, and I'm running for mayor of Kansas City. And I think we can only be a successful city if we have successful neighborhoods. That means neighborhoods that have high quality housing that our working families and our senior citizens can afford, and neighborhoods that have really high quality jobs that our citizens have both the skills and also the reliable transportation to thrive in. In other words, stable neighborhoods. My wife Elizabeth and I have 3 kids. They're 10, 8, and 5. And I see every day how stability helps children do well in school, and we all know how stability in a neighborhood helps neighbors watch out for each other and keep their streets safe. I'm a business owner. I've built over 5,000 homes and created over 5,000 jobs nationwide by investing in economically struggling communities, building infrastructure, affordable housing, child care centers, grocery stores, exactly the kinds of things that we need more of to strengthen our neighborhoods here in Kansas City. And the reason I'm excited about bringing those skills to the mayor's office is that I haven't just been talking about it, I've been doing it. And to answer the second part of your question about the interests of Black women in Kansas City, the other reason I'm excited to bring that business experience forward is a trend that we've seen here really across the country. During a 10-year period between 2002 and 2012, according to the Federal Reserve, Black women-owned businesses were actually the fastest growing category of businesses, growth of 180%.
Absolutely.
So the platform that I'm bringing forward is about strengthening neighborhoods, which are the foundation of our economy, and bringing more investment into our local small businesses here in Kansas City. So to those Black women entrepreneurs out there, and to all women who are seeking to be successful in their careers working in small businesses, I believe I'm the right choice to be mayor because I am a small business owner. I know what it's like to go through the process of building a company, and companies need access to capital so we can bring more investment into Kansas City. But the most important thing in any business is always people, which is why I'm focused on workforce development and helping every company in Kansas City grow.
That's really great. So when I think about, you were talking about the importance and what has been going well for Black women here and the trend across the country. Can you talk about racial inequity and kind of how you feel or what your opinion is about that and how that has impacted Kansas City and what would that look like under a Glynn administration?
Sure. I think just getting back to the research that we're kind of talking about right now, it was done by a researcher named Del Gines of the Kansas City Federal Reserve. If you Google it, it's a very interesting report, and it shows really that there are 2 sides to this coin. That on the one hand, it's exciting that this sector of Black women-owned businesses is booming because it's creating so much opportunity. But the dark side of that, if you will, is that the reason that sector is growing so fast is so many of these businesses are growing just out of necessity. Women who felt stifled in the big corporate workplace, women who felt they weren't getting promoted or getting access to opportunities in their own career because they were Black or because they were a woman. They really felt like, I can only be successful if I go out on my own. So in a sense, it's like everything else. I guess there's a good and a bad side to it. But it does reflect the overall racial and economic divide that we have in Kansas City. It's been something that has been, part of what is quote normal about Kansas City ever since I was a little kid, And like a lot of people as I grew older, I started to realize, no, this isn't normal. This isn't just the way things are. That this divide that we have in our community is the result of policy choices that we make. And if we want to do away with it, we have to make some significant policy choices to address it.
So I really love that, and I appreciate how fluently you're speaking about it. It may even be a sign of perhaps your interest in this this topic even before you decided to run for mayor. How has that shown up for you as a business person? Like, how have you engaged and worked, not just with Black women, but just across, and just pursuing or creating equity for all?
I've had this really great privilege to work in this exciting business called Travelway, which my wife and I now own. We've been around since 1995, and we've brought $1.4 billion worth of investment for affordable housing and community development, with a focus on working in Native American communities all over the country. So I'm not Native American. I'm a white guy born in Kansas City, Missouri.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not. And did I mention I'm from Kansas City? My family's been here for generations.
There you go.
But working in that world has been a real privilege for me, and it's really opened my eyes to this incredible diversity that we have out there in the U.S., all the different indigenous peoples of the United States. There are over 500 tribes in the United States, all with their own culture, their own courts, their own laws, their own ways of doing business and ways of developing their community. What I've learned from that is there's not just one way to have economic growth in your community. And you can never have economic growth if there's an idea that's imposed on your community from the outside. The way community economic development works is you don't tell people what to do. You come into a community and you listen. You identify who is a change agent in this community who can make something happen. And then you listen to and support that person as they rally their community around a vision. And once the community is on board, then my business, it's my job to bring the money to the table, to build the housing, build the hospital, start the business, whatever it is. And I'm really, really excited about bringing that skill set to the mayor's office, because what's been frustrating about Kansas City in the past is ideas are handed down from on high, and then everybody wonders why they don't work. I see value in ideas that come organically from the community, and there's so many positive things happening on a small scale throughout Kansas City right now. They just need more capital and more attention from the mayor's office to grow.
That's really great. And so one of the things, when we talk about having a seat at the table, is ensuring that those voices are at the table, and that we make room for different voices to be at the table. And so just one more question, I guess directly in this area. Can you talk about what that may look like in your administration with actually having diverse voices and experiences at the realm of your administration, and what might that look like? And if you're already working with certain people, you don't necessarily have to fill out names, but really show this commitment and demonstrating it if you are honored with the seat of the mayor.
Sure, I think there are two ways that the mayor can make real statements through action about diversity and inclusion, and that's by making staffing decisions for the mayor's office. People who play those key roles come to work at City Hall every day. But equally important is that the mayor makes hundreds of appointments to boards and commissions throughout the city, everything from the Parks Board to the Board of Truman Medical Center. And I'm committed to ensuring balance between men and women, a demographic representation of our entire community, as well as geographic balance between north and south of the river.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Let's go to another topic that is really important to all people, but in particular Black women, and that is quality education. So we know that a pre-K tax sales is on the ballot. Are you in support of this pre-K tax? Why or why not? And if not, please tell us what you propose instead.
I'm going to vote against it.
Okay.
And the reason is that our superintendents throughout Kansas City, our educational leaders, are opposed to it. That's a big red flag for me. And also, we need to do a better job as Kansas City of showing taxpayers value in their neighborhoods for the taxes they are already paying. And I have a lot of concerns about adding to the cost of living burden that our low-income families are already carrying by increasing the sales tax. Those are my issues with it. But education is my priority. And the way I look at it is this: healthy schools and healthy communities go hand in hand. It's the mayor and council's job to build enough affordable housing and create enough quality jobs so that families can have stability outside the classroom. And if we have stability outside the classroom, I know that our parents, our teachers, our coaches, our kids, our mentors, they will make it happen inside the classroom.
So what would you propose, if not this route, because the superintendents are not necessarily in favor with it? What would you do, or what would you have done differently to ensure that it would be a tax that you would be able to vote yes for?
Each of our school districts within KCMO has some form of pre-K. They're different. The programs are designed differently. There are different sizes, but everybody is beginning to incubate pre-K programs within their districts. What I think we need to do is stop eroding the tax base of our community by giving out TIF and tax abatement to everybody who asks for it, rebuild the financial stability of our school districts so that they can grow pre-K programs that are designed by educators, not politicians.
Okay. All right. So another thing that we talked about is about violence and what is going on in the city. And so what is your thoughts and plans about working alongside council persons and to really be able to effectively create viable solutions that can eradicate crime?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the council because the mayor has to work collaboratively with the council, and I'm really excited about a lot of the candidates who are running for city council.
Okay.
I think we're poised to have some really excellent, diverse leadership, some young leadership, a lot of new people, and I think that when I look at all the different possible combinations of people out there, I get so excited about the opportunity of working with the next council as mayor of Kansas City. And I think we have to look at the issue of crime and violence as short-term and long-term. Short-term, certain neighborhoods in Kansas City do need to see more police officers. In short term, we do need to increase funding for the social workers who are in the various patrol divisions around Kansas City. But the truth is, long term, it doesn't matter how much money we spend on the police department. If we can't reduce the inequality that we have in our community, then I don't believe we're going to see a sustainable decrease in violence.
So when you talk about more police officers, like what does that look like and what does that mean? Are we talking about community officers? Are we talking about more patrolling? And how will you effectively support it? And how will community voices be heard to help manage that or at least build what that looks like?
Well, I think number one, we have to learn from history. And we saw what over-policing our communities of color around the country did to families in the 1990s. Locking everybody up is not the answer to the problems we face in this city. What I'm talking about is gradually adding staff to the police department so that police officers actually have enough time to stop and breathe and build relationships with the people who are leaders in neighborhoods. Because as it is right now, with the staffing situation we have, all they do is run from call to call to call. And so for a lot of officers, the only interaction they get to have with a Kansas City is, think about the times that you call 911 when something bad is happening. Sometimes it's the lowest point in a person's life. It's these super high stress, high stakes situations all the time. And so what I'm talking about is adding funding for officers who can be in neighborhoods, not just to patrol, but actually meet people and build relationships with people. And again, getting back to this protecting and expanding funding for social workers in our patrol divisions, that's really important too, because a lot of the interactions that police officers are having with Kansas City is they're really dealing with somebody who has a mental health issue.
Right.
Not somebody who's committed a crime.
Right.
And that's asking officers to do something they haven't really been trained to do, something that they don't necessarily have the skill set to do, and something that can be better addressed by somebody who has a social work background.
So real quick, as we continue to go on, we want to encourage our viewers to please post your questions. Like I said, we really want to make this interactive. This is a unique opportunity because you get to ask Mr. Glynn here some questions that are relevant to the race. So we want to make sure that your voices are heard. I want to get back to what you were saying about the need for social workers, which that touches home for me as a trained social worker. And a lot of times, when we talk about the disparities that are among race, a lot of times people engage or think of Black and poor being synonymous, and it's not. The African American community is made up of all different type of experiences and people and backgrounds. But I recall in growing up that the war on drugs that was around the crack epidemic was really criminalized. And now when we think about the opioid crisis, it is a much more sympathetic view. Kind of what is your thoughts about that? And how have those realities really shaped how you see the world and how you would lead the city?
I think we need to recognize that addiction is something that touches everybody in this entire community. And sometimes we don't want to talk about it, and sometimes we keep that behind closed doors. But something that I've been fairly open talking about as part of this campaign, and something that my family has really, I think, done a good job and a healthy job of being open about, was that I had a great growing up experience. Both my parents had passed away, but they were fabulous people. I had a wonderful life growing up, very stable. I was privileged to have an excellent education. But my father struggled with alcoholism for his entire life. And he spent the last, more than a decade of his life in recovery and so healthy and so happy and so much at his best. And I had this firsthand experience of seeing somebody commit to going through a process of sobriety and recovery, and seeing how it took this huge support network of people around him in order for that to be successful. It was led by my mother. It was him taking the responsibility to do it. It was all his friends. It was people in our church. And as I think about that experience, I think we had it all. great neighborhood. He had a great job. We had this great family. We had this great life. And you know what? It was still hard. I can remember seeing him every day being so proud and seeing how much, still what a struggle it was under those best of economic circumstances. And then I think about people in our community who are going through that, who have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay bills. People who are single and raising kids. People who have to take 2 or 3 bus transfers and spend 2.5 hours getting across town to get to their work that still doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
And then I think about trying to go through recovery under those circumstances.
Right.
And so as I look at all these issues in our community, like you said, a lot of what happened in the 1990s was just a criminalization of either recreational drug use that was sort of frowned upon but not really enforced in the higher income white community, or flat out drug addiction, where somebody was destroying their life by using a drug that was eventually going to kill them.
Right.
And we talked about it like it was crime then, and the truth was it was addiction. And I think that a lot of people who call out the media for describing the opioid epidemic so differently, they're right to call them out. And now part of that may be that society's understanding of addiction has just evolved, and we all are just being more real about what we're talking about, but there's clearly a racial dynamic to that conversation as well, no doubt about it.
Okay, so, oh, look at that, good stuff. We've got some questions about thoughts about the public health approach to violence prevention and the public health violence prevention programs that are in place now. Share some of your thoughts about this.
Very excited about the potential, because again, this violence that we're living with in our community is unacceptable. And I spend a lot of time as a business owner talking about the economic root causes of this, but I also applaud the Kansas City Health Department and others in the community who are taking a public health approach to dealing with crime and violence in Kansas City. So I'll have to admit that I don't understand the approach as well as I understand kind of the things I've been talking about, of how affordable housing and quality jobs and better transportation, how I believe all of these things can increase the economic stability of a neighborhood. And again, I think this gets back to what the role of the mayor in Kansas City is really like. There are going to be areas where I'm going to need to lean on others. I'm going to need to listen on others and listen to what their background is. So if I'm being perfectly honest, do I support the public health approach to reducing violence in our community? Yes, because I know that the organizations that are working on it are organizations that I trust, that have public input because they have mayoral appointees on the board of the Kansas City Health Commission. But to be truthful, it's not an issue that I've studied in depth. And when I get into the mayor's office, I'm going to be working with those health commissioners and other people I know, communities creating opportunity, and other organizations that have been part of that work to better understand it.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that while you may not know the ins and outs of it, you'll be willing to understand a little bit more and figure out how we can really address it.
What I'm excited about is anybody who is talking about bringing down the level of violence in our community by doing something other than just arresting people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's why I'm excited about it. Because we've tried the other thing for so long, and we all know what the results have been.
Right. So one of the things, we've kind of jumped on some different areas, but what is your vision? Like you said, you grew up in Kansas City. You've seen things pan out for certain groups of people opposed to others. What is your vision if you're able to execute your plan and build the team that kind of creates success? How will Kansas City be different in 10, 15 years? What will be the legacy of your mayoral time?
That every job that's created in Kansas City is filled by somebody who grew up here. As I look at politics and as I look at the way our city has developed over the years, I think that a lot of politicians, for them, the marker of success is a new building, a ribbon cutting, a groundbreaking, the ceremonial hard hats and the golden shovels and that ribbon. That's the goal to get to. And I just disagree with that, because economic development isn't about buildings, it's about people. What I'm excited about, well, really what I'm sad about is, A, that this problem exists, that we have neighborhoods in Kansas City with concentrated unemployment, yet at the same time businesses that have jobs open that they can't fill. We have a public transportation system that only reaches 18% of the jobs in Kansas City. That means there's somebody out there with the skills and the desire to be successful that can't seize that opportunity just because they don't have access to a car that works. They can't rely to turn on in the morning, right? And so that's upsetting to me. But what I started to say, the flip side of that is there's so much opportunity. We have the opportunity to grow as a community by building up our people and by investing in our people. And so what I would view as success is if at the end of my time in public service, if I get the privilege to serve, is that the mentality around success changes. That we aren't just thinking about building buildings, we're thinking about building up our people. And if every job that got created in Kansas City was filled by somebody who grew up here, then, let's cut a ribbon in front of that. That's what I want people to be excited about.
That's I'm sure many people who've grown up here in Kansas City are nodding their heads and excited about that vision. So we only have just a few more minutes left, and I really think, I want to share that time with you to be able to talk to the constituents and let them know, and maybe in your closing, let us know what is it that you need from us and what can we count on from you.
Well, the first thing I need from you is I'm asking for your vote on April 2nd. This is the time when our entire community gets to show up, gets to pull their seat up to the table, that leadership, and gets to put down on paper, this is what I want for the future of my community. So obviously I want your vote, but no matter who you're supporting in this race, please go vote on April 2nd. We have to increase the level of political engagement and voter turnout in this community if we're going to make progress on any of the stuff that we've been talking about. So the first thing I'd like to ask for is everybody's vote on April 2nd. And as far as what you can do to help me is let's keep talking and I'll keep listening. And I need to be able to reach out to people who are in all these diverse communities throughout Kansas City to understand this community as well as possible so that I can serve this community as well as possible.
All right, you guys heard it here live. We are here with mayoral candidate Phil Glynn. Thank you so much for taking the time and hanging out with the ladies of Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet.
This was fun.
Shout out to Shirley Chisholm. And so thank you, and we wish you well.
Thanks a lot.
All right.